Okay, this morning I'm going to do part 2 of how Maori are being radicalised in New Zealand. Yesterday we showed a video of Waititi's wife, Kerry, and what she was doing and how she was radicalising people. Well, here's another incident that happened actually in Parliament. Now, I'll just tell you what happened before you actually see it. What happened was a Maori gentleman up in the galleries was invited to do a waiata, a Maori prayer, and but then he transitioned from a Maori prayer into a speech, and the Speaker of the House, Maureen Pugh, who's a National Party MP, she shut him down and said, "This is breaking the rules of Parliament. You can't have speeches from the gallery." Well, with that, he just kept on going because he's obviously been radicalised, but you'll see what happens, and I'm going to comment on this video as we go through. So just watch this, it's pretty interesting. So this is the man, this is not a prayer going on here, this is a full-on speech. He's waving his hat around and so on. He's got his little band of supporters up there with him. So watch what happens next.
Excuse me, can I call for order in the gallery, please? Order in the gallery?
So this man just keeps going. He does not obey Maureen Pugh. That's Maureen Pugh there in the pink. She's standing in for the usual Speaker of the House, who is Jerry Brownlee. So the man in the gallery doesn't obey Maureen Pugh. In other words, he's just riding roughshod over the Speaker. And what we're getting to see here is we're getting to see how Parliament is breaking down in terms of law and order, in terms of decorum. And what we're seeing is kind of a rebellious attitude of Maori to authority, to white authority, the existing governmental authority and structures. They're seemingly just riding over them, completely ignoring them as though they don't matter. Now, what I love about Maureen Pugh, and we need to support her and get behind her, is that she's not ruffled at all, and she sticks to her guns. But this is pretty intimidating behaviour, but all credit to Maureen for standing up and saying, listen, stop this. This is turning into, debating chamber is turning into a classroom sort of situation here.
There is permission for a waiata. The gallery is not the place for speeches.
Okay, so what had happened was a permission was given for a prayer, but then he launched, as I said, from a prayer into a speech. And she said that's not allowed. And good on Maureen for calling him out and stopping it.
I hear you. I'm just waiting on the gallery to clear.
Okay, then we have the most exciting bit of all, which is Rawiri Waititi rises to his feet, and watch what happens next.
Point of order, Rawiri Waititi.
I find it extremely insulting that one of our rangatira was cut off, which is part of the protocol of the waiata today.
Okay, so what you have here is you have a classic intimidation, bullying behaviour from a Maori, and this is what they do, become very emotionally charged, and the charge is that you've insulted Maori culture, Maori law, Maori protocols, and this is deeply, deeply insulting. And of course, what happens is most Kiwis, when they're confronted with this sort of situation, would just back down and say, look, I'm very sorry, I didn't realise. And so what's happening in New Zealand is we have what we call a eggshell mentality developing quickly amongst the population of New Zealand towards all things Maori. And if you drill down deeper than that, what's happening is that Maori are trying to control you, control me through this eggshell mentality. In other words, when you're around a Maori, you've got to be very careful because they're very easily insulted, very easily upset, and they become very animated, which is intimidating and bullying and threatening, and you back down. And like I say, behind all that is control. They want to control you. Now, I have written in my book that I wrote, the 18 strategies Maori activists are using to take over New Zealand, which is in the description of this video. I have explained in a chapter about how this actually works and what's behind all this. And so we get this outburst from Waititi, who's saying it's extremely insulting, and then watch what happens.
And I call for an apology from the Speaker today. Tū te whakatohe.
Okay, so the rule's been broken in Parliament, and he's now calling for an apology. So this is rapidly degenerating into a classroom, fifth form classroom brawl, and one of the kids is challenging the teacher, and he's demanding an apology from the Speaker, who's upholding the law of Parliament.
For rudely interrupting.
Talk about speaking down to her as though she's a nothing, as though he is the school teacher, and now the roles have been switched. She is now the student, and he's the school teacher.
What was...
Excuse me.
that was a point of order.
So Maureen Pugh pulls him up and says, no, that's not a point of order. Good on Maureen. She doesn't look ruffled at all. She's very calm. She's very resolute, and I just take my hat off to her the way she behaved here. She was great.
Absolutely, because I take umbrage to that. I'm insulted by that. As te whakatohe.
Okay, so Maori always use this phrase, I'm insulted. And of course, everybody backs down, and the New Zealand population is backing down, and everybody's backing down, and so on it goes. And like I say, behind that is control. They want to control you. They want to control New Zealand. They want to control Parliament. Everywhere they go, they want to have control.
So I call for the Speaker to apologise to the whakatohe before they leave these chambers.
Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, the purpose of these settlements is to acknowledge the wrongs of the Crown, to acknowledge the constant trampling.
Okay, so what's happening here is there's a guy here who's an MP, and he's a Green MP, and he chips in and starts to talk about this, and he chips in and his name is Steve Abel, A-B-E-L, and he chips in and he's starting to gang up on Maureen Pugh. He's got a bit of greenstone around his neck, and so we're seeing a sort of like Waititi's behaviour is spreading. Waititi's radicalisation of people, and Debbie Nauru-Apaka, and people like Kerry Waititi's wife that we saw yesterday, this behaviour is starting to spread. It's like a cancer. It goes through everywhere. And next thing what's going to happen is you're going to see school children, Maori school children in school rebelling against their teachers. You're going to see people rebelling against the police, against anything where there's any authority. It now can be challenged because they're getting their cues from these kind of people. These guys are setting the example for people who are watching, young Maori people who are watching, are being radicalised by these people in Parliament who are supposed to be leaders.
And insults committed against Maori and direct losses. And yet, in the whole process, we find we keep committing further harm and insult. And that moment then was a complete unnecessary.
Itapeka, what we allowed was to give you more.
Okay, she calls the Speaker, this is now Debbie Nauru-Apaka, who's another co-leader. She calls the Speaker Itapeka, which is just a Maori name for the Speaker of the House. And she gives the Speaker a great dressing down. Like Nauru-Apaka is the school teacher, and the Speaker of the House is a little kid sitting on the mat in a classroom.
You didn't use any of your cultural support you could have to have ensured the mana of this kaupapa. The mana of our iwi was respected. There was a very wrong here done today.
Can you believe that? This is so talking down to a senior National Party member who is in charge of the House, Maureen Pugh, and she's being talked to like a little kid on the mat by a school teacher. It's hard to believe this is true, but this is what it is. This is what Parliament's becoming.
And they must be apologised to before they leave. Otherwise, the very process of which every party supported today has been takahi.
Okay, I'm a school teacher, and I so recognise this from some of the teachers, the colleagues that I taught with, this is the way school teachers sometimes talk to their little kids, little 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds. And this is what Debbie Nauru-Apaka is doing to the Speaker of the House, Maureen Pugh. Pretty unbelievable, but this is what it's become. And what it's showing is that the Maori Party is slowly taking over Parliament, is slowly creeping in and taking over Parliament. And Parliament is being Maorified through bullying, intimidation, threatening behaviour like this.
Please ask that you consider.
Tikanga in this house and that I have to uphold.
Okay, she makes a mistake here. She says, I have to uphold the tikanga of this house. I don't think she should have used a Maori word there, tikanga, because once you start using Maori words, you're showing by your language that you are allowing yourself to be brushed by the Maori brush. And you're starting to... Now, I know that what she's doing, she's trying to identify with Maori and using their language. But if she has said, look, the rules of this house are such and such, but she said the tikanga of this house. And I think that's wrong. I think that she should have just stuck to English language and said, according to the rules of this house and so on. But she didn't, so there you go. So watch how this pans.
All right. My job is to protect the tikanga of this parliament.
Okay, so Jerry Brownlee, to his credit, comes in and he's the boss, and he tries to get control back again of the classroom, and the little kids sit down. That's Waititi and Narawapaka, and the big boss, the principal of the school, has arrived. He's come in, and he makes a mistake as well. He's saying the tikanga of this house. He shouldn't be saying that, I don't think. Now, I don't mind speaking a Maori word every now and then if it wasn't underpinned by ideological claptrap. If there wasn't a takeover going on in this country by Maori activists wanting to get control of New Zealand again, take it over, then I would use a Maori word. But I know what's going on. I know that behind Te Reo, behind Maori language, is a very, very strong ideological drive to take over this country. And Te Reo is like a very key part of it. It's a weapon. It's been weaponized to be part of this brainwashing, conditioning, propaganda that the activists are using to really groom the population of New Zealand to Maorify, which is, beyond that, is tribal rule. The increasing creep of Maorification and tribal rule into New Zealand. So I don't use any Maori words whatsoever. Jerry Brownlee uses the word tikanga here. Now I know what he's doing. He's trying to relate to Maori, but you know what? He didn't need to, because Maori would know. Maori in the house would know what the rules of the house means. But instead he uses the word tikanga.
This parliament, it is the parliament of all people in New Zealand. And there
Good on Jerry Brownlee for pointing that out. This is the parliament of all people. In other words, he's really saying to the Maori Party, hey, you know what? This is not all about you. We're here representing all New Zealanders, not just you. So he's telling them off. And I commend him for that, because that's the truth of the matter.
no intention to offend anybody in the upholding of its own tikanga. And tikanga does not allow for speeches from the gallery. It never has.
Okay, so there's the rule. Speeches are not allowed in the gallery. But like I say, he makes the mistake of using this word to describe those rules. No, Jerry, you shouldn't have done that. Bad move. But I do commend him, on the other hand, for coming in like the principal and laying down the law, and strongly, and saying Parliament is for all Kiwis, not just Maori, which is how it's becoming.
And on that basis, we will now proceed. And those who do not want to accept that, will unfortunately, that is, no change can be made.
Now notice right at the very end, there's people shouting out, shame, your shame. So we're getting a direct challenge here to Parliament, to the people in authority, Jerry Brownlee and Maureen Pugh. And this is all kind of the thin end of the wedge for me as I observe all this. This is the thin end of the wedge of rebellion, a coup, takeover, and that's what's happening. And it's coming right from Parliament, inside Parliament, and it's being this radicalisation of Maori who are watching all this. It's sowing rebellion, and it's sowing a pushback of authority, that you can rebel against the authority figures and no problem, because this is what you do. This is how to behave in this society. And of course, the end of this is anarchy. The end of this, if this keeps going, is anarchy. Because all these young people out there in New Zealand, this is public TV, this is on television, they see this, and they see their leaders acting and behaving in this way, And so they copy them, and that's how it works.
Please share this video with everyone everywhere. The mainstream media should be reporting on the issues I am raising in these videos, but they're not. Why aren't they? Well, they're corrupt. Why are they corrupt? They are collaborating with Maori activists, there's no doubt about that. In the final analysis, the people of New Zealand, that's us, have ultimate power, not the politicians. Did you know that? The people can kick out the people in power and they can put them into power. How are we going to do that? Well, awareness is the key to change. If enough people in New Zealand become aware of the issues I am raising, we can save this beautiful country. So share these videos everywhere so that come the next election, we can vote the right people in and kick out the people who are destroying New Zealand.